First Contact Protocol. High Commander Vix stood at the helm of the Galactic Empire's flagship Eternal Dominion, her iridescent scales reflecting the soft purple light of the bridge's holographic displays. The massive vessel, over 20 kilometers in length, led a fleet of 500 warships as they prepared to exit faster-than-light travel near the edges of yet another primitive solar system. Status report, she commanded, her triangular pupils dilating slightly as she studied the preliminary scans of their latest target. First Officer Zix consulted his neural interface, the cybernetic implants along his neck pulsing with a soft blue glow. The system contains 8 planets orbiting a standard G-type star, Commander. Initial scans confirm the presence of a technological civilization on the 3rd planet, with minor colonies on the 4th planet and natural satellite of the 3rd. Vix nodded, having overseen dozens of such first contact scenarios during her 3-century career. The Galactic Empire had expanded to control over 5,000 star systems through a tried and tested methodology. Arrive with overwhelming force, demonstrate their technological superiority, and offer the choice between peaceful submission or complete annihilation. Classification, she asked, already knowing the answer would justify their standard conquest protocols. Pre-FTL civilization, Commander. They appear to be confined to their own solar system, using primitive fusion drives for local space travel. Their most advanced weapons appear to be chemical rockets and basic directed energy weapons. Vix allowed herself a small smile, another routine acquisition for the Empire. Yet something about the sensor readings caught her attention. What's this anomaly in the orbital patterns? The ship's science director, Kix, stepped forward, his aged scales dulled to a deep blue. That's what's peculiar, Commander. Given their documented history of space exploration spanning over 3 centuries, we should be detecting significant orbital debris fields. Yet their orbital spaces are remarkably clean. Perhaps they're simply more responsible with their space waste than most young civilizations, First Officer Zix suggested. Kix shook his head, the motion causing his cybernetic enhancements to shimmer. No, you don't understand. There's nothing. No defunct satellites, no spent rocket stages, not even microdebris. It's as if something has been actively cleaning their orbital spaces with unprecedented efficiency. Vix felt a slight tingle along her spine, an instinct honed through centuries of military service, suggesting that something wasn't quite right. Still, their mandate was clear. Proceed with standard first contact protocols. Move the fleet into position and prepare the demonstration package. The massive Krylaxian fleet emerged from FTL in perfect formation, their crystalline hulls refracting sunlight in a deliberately intimidating display of precision and power. They positioned themselves just beyond the orbit of the human planet's singular moon, their presence impossible to miss by even the most primitive of detection systems. Broadcasting Imperial Standard First Contact message on all frequencies, Communications Officer Rix announced. The message was one they had delivered countless times before. Greetings, inhabitants of the 3rd planet. We are representatives of the Galactic Empire, rulers of 5,000 star systems. Your civilization has been deemed worthy of incorporation into our domain. Prepare to receive our representatives within 1 standard rotation of your planet. Resistance will result in immediate hostile action. The bridge crew waited expectantly for the usual response. Panic, desperate pleas, or immediate submission. Instead, they received a simple text-only message in return. Acknowledged. Sending representative for preliminary discussion. Rather calm for a primitive species facing a superior force, Vix mused. Scan for any signs of military mobilization. Nothing, Commander, Tactical Officer Mix reported. Their orbital defense platforms remain powered down, and we detect no significant movement of their space-capable vessels. Before Vix could respond, Science Director Kix's instruments began registering unusual readings. Commander, I'm detecting some sort of quantum fluctuation near our port bow. Wait, it's gone. He paused, checking his readings again. For a moment, It was as if space itself hiccuped. "Explain," Vix demanded. "I can't." The readings defied our understanding of quantum mechanics. It was almost as if he was interrupted by a notification from the ship's eye. "Commander," the AI's synthetic voice announced, "a small vessel has requested permission to dock. It appeared approximately 30 seconds ago, though our sensors show no record of its approach." Vix frowned. Their sensors could track a micrometeoroid from light years away. How could they have missed an approaching ship? "Show me." The main view screen displayed a small vessel, no larger than a Krylaxian shuttle. It was a perfect sphere, its surface a deep black that seemed to drink in light itself. No visible propulsion systems, no weapons ports, not even seams in its construction were visible. "Scan it," Vix ordered. Unable to comply, the AI responded. "Our scans cannot penetrate the vessel's hull. Its composition appears to be uncertain." First Officer Zix stepped closer to the view screen. "Uncertain? How can matter be uncertain?" "Because you're making assumptions about what constitutes matter," a new voice answered, causing the entire bridge crew to spin around in shock. Standing calmly in the middle of their secure bridge was a human female. She appeared to be of middle age by their intelligence reports on human biology, dressed in a simple gray suit that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. No weapons were visible, but something about her presence made Vix's combat instincts scream in warning. "How did you?" Vix began. "Get here," the human finished with a small smile. "The same way we've kept our orbital spaces clean for the past century. The same way we've been watching your empire's expansion across the galaxy. The same way we've prepared for this moment since we first split the atom and realized we weren't alone in the universe." She stepped forward, and Vix noticed that the human's feet didn't quite seem to touch the floor. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, and I'm here to warn you about something your empire has never encountered before, a species that developed differently than any other you've conquered. You dare to threaten the Krylaxian Empire?" Vix snarled, her hand moving toward her weapon. Dr. Chen's smile remained unchanged. "No, High Commander Vix. I'm trying to prevent a tragedy. You see, humanity didn't develop like other species. We didn't focus on expanding outward. We focused on understanding inward. While your empire was conquering thousands of star systems, we were learning to manipulate the fabric of reality itself." She gestured, and suddenly the bridge's view screen showed impossible images, vast networks of structures that seemed to exist between normal space, energy patterns that defied physics, and technologies that made their most advanced systems look primitive in comparison. "This is your only warning," Dr. Chen continued. "The Guardian Protocol is already active. Leave our solar system now, and we can begin diplomatic relations properly. Stay, and you'll discover why humanity has never needed to create the kind of space debris your sensors were looking for." The implications slowly dawned on Vix as she processed the human's words. They hadn't found a primitive civilization preparing for first contact. They had found something entirely new. The warning signs. First Officer Zix couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over the Eternal Dominion since the humans' mysterious departure 20 hours ago. The bridge crew had spent countless hours analyzing every second of Dr. Chen's impossible appearance and disappearance, yet their most sophisticated instruments had failed to explain how she had bypassed their security systems. "Another anomaly detected in Sector 7, reported Science Director Kix, his voice carrying an edge of frustration. "Same quantum signature as before, but this time it lasted for 3 microseconds longer." High Commander Vix paced the command platform, her scales shifting between shades of purple and gray, a sign of deep agitation in their species. "Status of the demonstration package. Ready for deployment, Commander." Tactical Officer Mix responded. "Target selected. Their largest orbital platform around the 4th planet. One shot will demonstrate our technological superiority without causing excessive casualties." The standard playbook for dealing with resistant civilizations, yet nothing about this situation felt standard anymore. "Sir," The urgency in Communications Officer Rix's voice drew everyone's attention. "We're detecting a transmission from inside our secure networks." The main view screen activated without command, displaying a simple message: "Look closer." Suddenly, every display on the bridge began showing different images, detailed scans of their own fleet, technical readouts of their weapon systems, and most disturbingly, personal information about every crew member aboard. "Impossible," Kix whispered. "These are from our isolated quantum-encrypted databases. No external system should be able to access them, let alone decode them." The images changed again, now showing historical footage from Earth's archives. Scenes of human warfare through the ages played across the screens. Ancient battles with primitive weapons, world wars that scarred continents, Cold Wars fought with economics and information, and finally, glimpses of experiments that seemed to bend reality itself. "Commander," First Officer Zix's voice was barely controlled. "Long-range sensors are detecting anomalies throughout the system. The humans appear to have some sort of network in place." "What kind of network?" Vix demanded. "That's just it. We can only see it when it glitches, for lack of a better term. It's as if they've built something in dimensions we can barely detect." Science Director Kix's instruments began registering new readings. "The quantum fluctuations are increasing in frequency. They're forming patterns now, almost like..." "Like what?" "Like neural pathways, as if the entire solar system is becoming aware of our presence." A new message appeared on their screens. "The Guardian Protocol is not a weapon. It is an awakening." Vix had finally had enough. "Launch the demonstration package now." The bridge crew scrambled to comply, and one of their most powerful warships moved into position. Its main weapon, capable of reducing a small moon to atoms, powered up and fired at the Mars orbital station. The beam never reached its target. Instead, the energy simply vanished, about halfway to its destination. No explosion, no dispersion effect, just complete disappearance. "Impossible," Mex breathed. "That much energy can't just cease to exist." "You're right," a familiar voice agreed. Dr. Chen had returned, this time appearing seated casually in the commander's chair. "Energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it can be redirected." As if on cue, their sensors detected massive energy spikes throughout the solar system. The quantum fluctuations they'd been detecting suddenly made sense. They were watching the power of their own weapon being distributed and absorbed by some vast, invisible network. "What are you?" Vix demanded. "We are humanity," Dr. Chen replied calmly. "While other species reached for the stars, we reached for understanding. While they built empires, we built knowledge. Your empire expands through space. We learn to expand through reality itself." She stood, and this time there was no mistaking it. Her feet definitely weren't touching the floor. "Your weapon just provided enough energy to fully activate the Guardian Protocol. Would you like to see what that means?" Before anyone could respond, every sensor on the Eternal Dominion went dark. When they came back online seconds later, the readings they showed defied comprehension. The supposedly primitive orbital platforms around Earth and Mars had transformed. Where there had been simple rotating habitats, there were now structures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The clean orbital spaces they'd noted earlier suddenly made sense. They weren't clean, they were hidden, concealing a defensive network beyond their comprehension. "By the ancestors," Kix whispered, studying his readings. "Their entire solar system. It's like a quantum computer, but on a scale that shouldn't be possible." Dr. Chen nodded. "For 300 years, we prepared. We built our defenses not in the space you could see, but in the reality you couldn't comprehend. Every satellite, every piece of space debris we apparently failed to create, every seemingly empty sector of space, all part of the Guardian Protocol. The protocol is now fully armed," she continued. "You have 6 hours to retreat from our solar system. After that, we cannot guarantee your ability to leave under your own power. or in your current dimension of existence. With that warning delivered, she simply ceased to exist again. But this time, the bridge crew could see it happen. Her form didn't disappear so much as fold itself through dimensions they could barely perceive. First Officer Zix turned to his commander, his scales now a pale shade of gray. "Your orders, sir." High Commander Vix stared at the space where Dr. Chen had been, then at the incomprehensible readings still flooding their sensors. For the first time in her centuries of service, she faced an enemy that didn't just match their technological level. They operated on a completely different understanding of reality itself. "Begin documenting everything," she ordered quietly. "The Empire needs to know what we found here, and what we've awakened." In the space around them, the quantum fluctuations continued to grow stronger, and the invisible network of humanity's true technological achievements began to pulse with power that defied their understanding of physics itself. The warning signs were clear. They had not found a primitive civilization to conquer. They had found humanity's front door. And they had just rung the bell. The awakening. The next 4 hours aboard the Eternal Dominion were filled with frantic activity as the Krylaxian fleet struggled to understand what they were witnessing. Science Director Kix hadn't left his station since their last encounter with Dr. Chen, his aged claws flying over holographic controls as he attempted to document phenomena that shouldn't exist. "Commander," he called out, his voice hoarse from hours of continuous reporting, "you need to see this analysis of their quantum network." High Commander Vix moved to his station, her scales now a muted gray of uncertainty. The displays showed a three-dimensional representation of the solar system, overlaid with patterns of energy that seemed to twist in impossible ways. "What am I looking at, Director?" "The truth," Kix responded, his voice filled with a mixture of fear and awe. "We've been scanning the wrong things all along. Those orbital platforms we detected, they're not stations at all. They're nodes in a vast quantum network that encompasses the entire solar system." First Officer Zix joined them, studying the displays with growing concern. "But how could they hide something of this scale? Our initial scans should have detected the energy requirements alone." "Because they're not generating energy in any way we understand," Kex explained, pulling up new diagrams. "Look at these readings. They're not creating or consuming energy. They're channeling it directly from the quantum fabric of space-time itself." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. A civilization that had mastered the ability to tap into the fundamental forces of reality itself. "Sir," Tactical Officer Mex's voice cut through the silence. "Multiple anomalies detected throughout the fleet. Something is scanning us." Before anyone could respond, every holographic display on the bridge transformed. The purple Krylaxian text and images were replaced by human characters, scrolling at impossible speeds. But these weren't just computer codes. They were mathematical formulas that seemed to describe reality itself. "By the ancestors," Kix whispered, his cybernetic enhancements struggling to process what he was seeing. "These equations, they're not just describing our technology, they're rewriting the rules of how it operates." A new message appeared. The Guardian Protocol is not just a defense system. It is an evolution. Suddenly, the quantum fluctuations they had been detecting coalesced into visible patterns throughout the solar system. Great ribbons of energy, visible yet somehow existing between normal spacetime, began to weave themselves into structures that defied comprehension. "Commander," Communications Officer Rix reported, her voice shaking, "we're receiving thousands of new signatures. They're emerging from the quantum network." The fleet watched in stunned silence as humanity's true technological achievements revealed themselves. What they had mistaken for primitive orbital platforms transformed, unfolding through multiple dimensions. Simple satellites reconfigured into devices that manipulated gravity itself. The seemingly empty space between planets filled with structures that existed partially in other dimensions. "High Commander," Dr. Chen's voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "The Guardian Protocol is now fully activated. Would you like to understand what that means?" Before Vix could respond, A small object appeared in the center of the bridge, a perfect sphere about the size of a Krylaxian fist, rotating slowly in midair. It appeared to be made of some kind of liquid metal, its surface constantly shifting and flowing. "This is a Type 1 observer," Dr. Chen explained, her voice still seemingly coming from the air itself. "It's one of our simplest technologies, created about 50 years ago. Would you like to know what it does?" Science Director Kix stepped forward, his instruments attempting to analyze the sphere. "These readings, it's generating more computational power than our entire fleet's combined AI systems." "Correct," Dr. Chen confirmed. "But that's not its primary function. This little device is currently mapping every quantum state of every atom in your flagship, while simultaneously calculating all possible future states of those atoms for the next 1,000 years. In human terms, we call it a probability engine." The sphere pulsed once, and suddenly every screen on the bridge showed detailed schematics of the eternal dominion, not just its current state, but hundreds of possible variations, including ways it could be improved, ways it could fail, and ways it could be transformed into something entirely different. "This is impossible," First Officer Zix breathed. "The computational requirements alone would exceed the energy output of an entire star system." "By your understanding of physics, yes," Dr. Chen agreed. "But we stopped thinking in terms of traditional physics centuries ago. While your empire expanded outward, humanity expanded inward. We learned to see reality not as a fixed set of rules, but as a collection of possibilities waiting to be reshaped." The sphere pulsed again, and the bridge crew watched in horror as small sections of their supposedly indestructible crystalline hull simply shifted, transforming from one molecular configuration to another without any apparent energy input. "That was just a demonstration," Dr. Chen continued. "The Guardian Protocol consists of millions of devices far more sophisticated than this observer, each one capable of rewriting the fundamental laws of physics within its sphere of influence. Together, they form a network that can reshape reality itself." High Commander Vix found her voice at last. "Why show us this? Why not simply destroy us?" "Because destruction is easy," Dr. Chen replied, and now her form shimmered into view beside the sphere. "Creation, true creation, the kind that expands the possibilities of existence itself. That's what humanity has always strived for. We're not showing you our capabilities as a threat, but as an invitation to understand." The sphere rose higher, and now the bridge crew could see that what they had thought was its surface was actually countless smaller spheres, all moving in perfect synchronization. "Your empire builds its power through conquest. We built ours through comprehension. You see the universe as something to be ruled. We see it as something to be understood." As if to emphasize her point, the quantum network surrounding the solar system pulsed with new energy. The Krylaxian fleet's sensors registered power readings that exceeded their entire empire's energy production, and yet somehow produced no waste heat, no radiation, nothing that their instruments could properly measure. "You have 2 hours remaining to withdraw," Dr. Chen said softly. "Use them wisely. Observe. Learn. Understand why humanity never needed to expand beyond our solar system to achieve what you would call technological supremacy." With that, both she and the sphere vanished, leaving behind a bridge crew that now understood they weren't facing a primitive civilization's defenses. They were witnessing the birth of something their empire had never encountered before, a species that had transcended the very laws of reality they took for granted. The price of arrogance. High Commander Vix stood motionless on her bridge as the final minutes of humanity's deadline approached. The last 2 hours had been spent in fierce debate with the Imperial High Command, but in the end, the Empire's pride had won out over reason. Their orders were clear: no primitive species, regardless of their apparent capabilities, could be allowed to defy the Empire. "Status of the fleet?" she asked, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of military discipline. "All ships report ready, Commander," First Officer Zix responded, though his scales had taken on the pale blue shade of deep concern. "Attack formation Delta has been established. All weapons are primed. Science Director Kix looked up from his station, his aged features drawn with worry. Commander, these readings, the human quantum network has grown exponentially in the last hour. The energy patterns we're detecting, they're like nothing we've ever seen. The Empire does not bow to tricks and illusions, Vix stated, repeating the words of the Imperial command. Begin the attack sequence. As the massive Krylaxian fleet moved into their final attack positions, a familiar voice echoed through the bridge. Your Empire's pride will cost you dearly, Dr. Chen said, though she didn't appear this time. We gave you every chance to understand. Open fire, Vix commanded, her voice steady despite the dread building in her chest. 500 of the most powerful warships in known space unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Energy beams capable of splitting planets, torpedoes that could shatter moons, and weapons that manipulated the very forces of gravity, all directed at the seemingly vulnerable Earth and its orbital defenses. What happened next would be debated in the Empire's military academies for centuries to come. The first wave of attacks simply stopped. Not blocked, not absorbed, but stopped. It was as if they had fired their weapons into a dimension where the concepts of motion and energy simply didn't exist. Impossible, Tactical Officer Mix whispered. The energy readings, they're not dispersing. They're being rewritten. Before their eyes, their own weapons fire began to transform. The energy beams twisted in ways that defied physics, forming complex patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than their sensors could track. The torpedo salvos froze in space, their warheads turning inside out through geometries that shouldn't exist. Second wave, Vix ordered, her training overriding her growing fear. All ships, maximum power. The fleet fired again. This time, the results were even more devastating. To the Krylaxians, their own weapons turned back on them, not as attacks, but as waves of transformation. Where the energy touched their ships, reality itself seemed to hiccup. Commander, Kix's voice cracked with panic. The quantum network, it's not just defending, it's evolving, learning. Every attack we launch gives it more patterns to work with, more energy to reshape. Across the fleet, ships began to experience impossible malfunctions. Crystalline hulls turned fluid, solid matter phased between states that shouldn't exist, and energy systems reversed their flow without any apparent cause. It wasn't destruction. It was fundamental transformation on a scale that defied comprehension. Show me, Vix demanded. The main view screen activated, showing them the true scope of what they faced. The human quantum network had evolved beyond anything they had detected before. It now existed as a vast, multi-dimensional web that encompassed the entire solar system. Each node was a point where reality itself could be rewritten, each connection a channel through which the very laws of physics could be reshaped. Your weapons cannot harm what they cannot understand. Dr. Chen's voice returned, now carrying a note of sadness. Your technology operates within the rules of reality as you know them. We learn to change the rules themselves. To demonstrate her point, a section of space near the fleet simply folded. There was no other word for it. Reality itself creased like paper, and 20 of the Empire's most powerful warships found themselves existing in a pocket of space where their technology simply couldn't function. Sir, Communications Officer Rix reported, her voice shaking. We're losing contact with more ships every second. It's not damage. They're being altered. The crews are safe, but their ships are being rewritten on a quantum level. First Officer Zix moved to Vix's side, his scales now almost white with terror. Commander, we have to retreat. We're not fighting a war. We're trying to attack a civilization that has transcended the very nature of reality itself. But retreat was no longer a simple option. The quantum network had expanded, creating a web of altered spacetime that made conventional FTL travel impossible within the solar system. The Krylaxian fleet was trapped, not by walls or weapons, but by the transformation of space itself. Now, Dr. Chen's voice carried a finality that chilled every Krylaxian to their core. "You will understand the true price of your arrogance." The Guardian Protocol reached its final stage of activation. Throughout the solar system, reality began to ripple like waves on a pond. The Krylaxian fleet watched in horror as their mighty warships were caught in these waves of transformed spacetime. Ships aged centuries in seconds, their hulls crumbling to dust only to reform as entirely new configurations. Others found themselves phasing between different quantum states, existing in multiple realities simultaneously. Some simply winked out of existence, reappearing seconds later in completely different locations, their crews shaken but unharmed. "This is not destruction," Dr. Chen explained as the fleet was systematically transformed. "This is education. Every ship we alter, every system we rewrite, adds to our understanding. Your attack has given us more data about the nature of reality than a century of peaceful research." High Commander Vix watched helplessly as her mighty fleet was reduced not to rubble, but to a vast experiment in the malleability of reality itself. The Empire had expected to find a primitive civilization to conquer. Instead, they had become test subjects for a species that had moved beyond the very concepts of conventional warfare. In the space around them, the quantum network continued to pulse with impossible energy, each wave bringing new transformations, new configurations, new lessons in the price of underestimating humanity's true capabilities. A new understanding. 1 month after the failed invasion of Earth, the Grand Council chamber of the Krylaxian Empire was uncharacteristically silent. The usual pomp and ceremony had been stripped away, replaced by a somber atmosphere as the highest officials of the Empire gathered to face an uncomfortable truth. They were no longer the most advanced civilization in known space. High Commander Vix stood before the council, her scales now permanently tinged with the gray of humility. The events in the Sol system had changed her, as they had changed everyone who witnessed them. Of her original fleet of 500 ships, only the Eternal Dominion had returned unchanged, deliberately spared to deliver humanity's message. "Continue your report, Commander," Grand Emperor Zixus commanded, his golden scales dulled with concern. "The humans have begun dismantling the quantum network that defended their system," Vix stated, her voice steady despite the lingering trauma of what she had witnessed. But not because they fear retaliation. They simply no longer need it. Holographic displays activated around the chamber, showing the transformed Krylaxian ships that had once been part of her fleet. They were still operational, still crewed by their original personnel, but fundamentally changed. Their hulls now rippled with patterns that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions. Their energy systems tapped into physics that the Empire's best scientists were still struggling to comprehend. These vessels, Vix continued, were not damaged or destroyed. They were evolved. The humans used our own attack as a vast experiment in technological transformation. Each ship now operates on principles that our science had never even theorized. Science Director Kix, now promoted to head of the Imperial Science Division, stepped forward. "The humans didn't just defeat us, they used our aggression as a teaching opportunity. The data we've gathered from the transformed ships has advanced our understanding of physics by centuries, possibly millennia." The chamber erupted in murmurs as images of the transformed ships played across the screens. Ships that could phase through solid matter, vessels that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, engines that drew power from the fabric of reality itself. But why return them? One council member demanded. "Why show us this technology?" Dr. Sarah Chen's voice answered, causing every Krylaxian in the chamber to freeze. She appeared in the center of the room, her form somehow more substantial than before, as if she had learned to exist more fully in their reality. "Because the universe is not a prize to be won," she said, her presence commanding complete attention. "It's a mystery to be understood. Your empire sought to conquer us. We chose to teach you instead." The Grand Emperor himself rose from his throne, addressing the human directly. "You could have destroyed us. Not just our fleet, but our entire civilization. Why didn't you?" Because destruction is easy, Chen replied, echoing her words from the battle. Creation, transformation, understanding. These are the true challenges. Your empire has spent millennia perfecting the art of conquest. We spent those same millennia perfecting the art of comprehension. She gestured, and the holographic displays showed new images. The transformed Krylaxian ships now serving as centers of learning, their crews working alongside human scientists to understand the principles that had changed them. Your ships and crews are not prisoners, Chen explained. They are students and now teachers themselves. Each transformed vessel is a seed of understanding that will help your civilization grow beyond the limitations of conquest. The implications slowly dawned on the council. The humans hadn't just defeated an invasion. They had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy, not through force, but through understanding. The Guardian Protocol was never meant to be permanent, Chen continued. It was a transition tool, designed to protect us until we could help other civilizations understand what we had learned, that the true power of any species lies not in its ability to destroy or conquer, but in its capacity to comprehend and transform. She turned to address the entire council. Your empire stands at a crossroads. You can cling to your old ways of conquest and eventually face other civilizations like us. And they do exist. Or you can join us in exploring the true frontiers, not of space, but of reality itself. Grand Emperor Zixus was silent for a long moment, his ancient eyes studying the human before him. Finally, he spoke. How do we begin? Chen smiled, and for the first time, the Krylaxians saw not an enemy or even a superior force, but a teacher. You already have. Your transformed ships are more than just vessels. They are bridges between our understanding of reality and yours. Your crews are learning principles that will reshape your civilization's future. The question is, are you ready to learn with them? The chamber was quiet as the weight of this moment settled over them. The Krylaxian Empire, which had prided itself on being the most advanced civilization in known space, was being offered a chance to become something more than conquerors. There will be resistance, Vix said quietly. Change is never easy. No, Chen agreed, but it is inevitable. The universe is not divided between the strong and the weak, the advanced and the primitive. It is divided between those who seek to control reality and those who seek to understand it. Today, your empire takes its first step toward understanding. As if to emphasize her point, the transformed ships in orbit above the Krylaxian homeworld pulsed with new energy, creating patterns of light that danced through dimensions the empire was only beginning to perceive. This is not the end of your empire, Chen concluded. It is the beginning of your evolution. The stars await, not as territories to be conquered, but as mysteries to be understood. Are you ready to understand? The Grand Emperor looked around his council chamber, at the faces of beings who had spent their lives believing in the power of conquest. Then he looked back at the human who had shown them a different kind of power entirely. We are ready, he said, and with those words, the greatest empire in known space took its first step toward becoming something far more significant, a civilization that sought not to master reality, but to comprehend it. In the space above their world, the transformed ships continued their impossible dance, each movement a lesson in the true nature of reality, each pulse of energy a reminder that the greatest power in the universe was not the ability to destroy or conquer, but the capacity to understand and evolve. The age of empire was over. The age of understanding had begun.